stop gaslighting yourself. Those feelings that you have are important. Take them seriously. And no matter how much you feel that you shouldn't be feeling like this, that you should be able to cope, that you should be able to do more, that you shouldn't be so exhausted, take those things seriously and care for those things. And it's like, as I was saying earlier, let yourself off the hook, lower your standards. And I think the result of all those things is that we can come into a better relationship to ourselves.
Welcome to the Wildflow podcast with me, Charlotte Pranto, certified cycle and feminine embodiment coach and shamanic womb guide. In this podcast, I'll share my wisdom and conversations with powerful change makers, thought leaders and embodied teachers to invite you to live cyclically in flow with your menstrual cycle instead of fearing it, to heal menstrual shame and normalize womb wisdom and period positivity, and to step into your sovereign magnetic power to create and embody the change you desire to see in your world. Settle in to unleash your wild flow. Menopause is such a shamed and unspoken experience for many generations of women who receive the messaging that it's not possible to thrive post-menopause and that aging is a terrible thing. Whilst it can bring physical, mental, emotional and spiritual experiences that are unpleasant, menopause is not the end of the road. My guest, Kate Codrington, is a few years post-menopause herself and is here to tell us that it's possible to feel well, enjoy life and flourish on the other side of our menstrual cycling years. In her new book, Second Spring, The Self-Care Guide to Menopause, Kate helps us reframe menopause and brings the radical notion that with small changes and a clear-eyed look at what's no longer serving you, you can reclaim your vitality and joy in life. In our conversation, Kate brings her truth and nothing but her truth, which I'm totally here for. And she shares on how Kate connects with her cyclical nature in menopause once her cycle has ended via the creative, daily, lunar and seasonal cycles. How her menstrual cycle years and cycle awareness has deeply supported Kate now in menopause, and how she tunes into which seasonal energy she's embodying, feeling in her body at any time, by really going inwards. Real-world examples of how Kate embodies that inner energy and how she does that when she's not able to sync with a menstrual cycle. The concept, the beauty and the gift of understanding what the second spring, summer and autumn and winter are in the second half of life after menopause. It's not all over at menopause. And the absolute gift that she's found in Yoga Nidra as medicine for menopause. This episode's for you if you're post-menopausal yourself, are in perimenopause and are experiencing changes to your cycle and body, or if this is long behind you and you're in your second summer, autumn, or even winter. It's also really for you if this is all super far ahead, currently out of sight. You're not there yet, but you recognize the importance of learning, preparing, and setting yourself up for as much success as you can when your cycle ends and your menopause comes. Kate Codrington, my guest, is a mentor, speaker, facilitator, artist, and writer and therapist for 30 years. She's the author of the new book, Second Spring, A Self-Care Guide to Menopause. A pioneering spirit, Kate was the first to graduate as a menstruality medicine circle facilitator, is the host of Life and Inside Job podcast. She created the multi-level art textile project, The Pants of Empowerment and Threads of Friendship, and she creates seasonal yoga nidra inspired by the land where she lives in Hertfordshire in the UK. With partner in crime, Leora LaBeouf, she co-founded Womankind, facilitating retreats for menstruating and menopausal folk to build more kindness into their lives. And when she's not doing that, you'll find her in her compost heaps. So grab a cuppa, tune in and listen to this awesome episode on the second spring of menopause with Kate Codrington. Welcome, Kate Codrington, to the Wildflow podcast. How are you today?
Oh, I'm really excited for this conversation, actually. Yeah, I'm a bit hyper, which is interesting because I'm also experiencing a deep winter. So got both. I got it all going on.
Got it all going on. I love that. One thing I love to ask all of my guests when we start is just for a cycle check-in. So, if you have a menstrual cycle, just sharing where you are at in that cycle and how that feels for you in your body. And if you don't have a menstrual cycle for whatever reason or whichever stage of life you're at, just if you curious to know if you connect with your cyclic nature and how that's feeling for you today.
Well, first of all, how delicious to be asked that question. Just want to acknowledge that, I mean, in our little womby world, that's a question we quite often ask, but in the wider world, wow, what a bloody brilliant question to ask. And I'm in second spring and I'm postmenopausal. So I haven't had a menstrual cycle for some years, so long now that I can't quite remember, but it might be for 3 or 4 years, something like that. And the last cycles I had for the last few years were kind of non-stop autumn. So they were very mono-seasoned. There you go. It's a new term. I just invented.
Yeah, I love it.
Mono-season. Lots of people experience mono winter, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Heavy bleeding and stuff. But anyway, I had a mono autumn, a mono season few years. So it's a long time since I connected with the menstrual seasons, the inner seasons of menstruality. But I am just so grateful for seasonal awareness, because I'm in a sort of quite a wintry place now. So what I mean by that is that my book, Second Spring, The Self-Care Guide to Menopause, was published middle of February, and it's now, where are we? Beginning of April. So that's sort of 6 weeks ago. And that involved me being out there and being a bright kind of la 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 presenty person, summary person a lot, and having it out there has been, I mean, just amazing. It is amazing, because this object is in the world and is doing her work, and people are going, oh yeah. They send me little messages going, oh, wow, I just feel so relieved I'm okay. And I'm like, oh, God,
it's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it is astonishing. And it involved a lot of exposure for me being out there, just being, doing lots of lives and sharing bits about my life and my personal life, which for a fairly introverted person has been very exposing. So what's happened is that I'm tired. I'm very tired and needed to stop. And so the wintry aspect, I know I'm in winter, a creative winter, because my energy is low, and stimulation, I feel very highly, more than usually sensitized to stimulation. So a little bit of stimulation is too much. Too many appointments. 1 appointment a day I can just about do.
Yeah, I hear you on that.
More than that, and I'm like, and that's why I'm hyper, because because for some reason Wednesdays are I don't understand what it is about Wednesdays, but they seem to be very intense at the moment. They kind of cram my week into a Wednesday accidentally. So I'm shaking. I'm quite hyper. But I was just chatting with my colleague at Womankind, Leora Lieboff, and this is kind of the reality of having great boundaries around screen time and social media and work. You can say, no, I will not turn on my computer for half the week or however many days. But then when you do turn it on, then you have a half a week's worth of emails and Instagram messages and WhatsApp messages and comments and. So at the moment I'm sitting and playing with knowing nothing, and being with the unknown. So I'm kind of in that phase of surrender, kind of peeking into emergence a bit.
I love that. So a creative winter, just starting to peek into emergence, but feeling that you're in a second spring phase or season of life as well. So holding these two, and then you're in the UK, so it's spring as well.
Spring. It's full on big blam blossom out there and new leaves, the whole thing.
Beautiful. Oh, yeah. So just holding those 3 layers of cycles, and how you're fairly aligned, it sounds like, but not quite creatively, like still in that very much in that winter phase. That's interesting.
But I think there, you know, when you have, so this is where I get my pointy finger out, and I feel my age. I think there is a difference in second spring, and I have objectivity about when my menstruating years, you know. And when you have a menstrual cycle, if you're lucky enough to have a menstrual cycle, and if you're lucky enough to be able to feel the seasons in your menstrual cycle, that can really guide you and govern you. You know, you can relax, if you're lucky, and if you're lucky, sometimes you can soften into the season that you're in. Put it like that. That's a bonus. Then you're winning, right? On occasion, you can soften into the season as you feel it. When you don't have a menstrual cycle, you are more aware of all the many, many cycles that are operating around you. Okay, so it's like what I observe is that the menstrual cycle is dominant for menstruators. That's the dominant cycle, and it's easy. I don't want to say it's easy, because for many people it's not, but for some it's possible to sink into the menstrual seasons. But the other cycles, the moon, the annual season, the circadian rhythm, which I very strongly aligned with, like really like hilariously strongly aligned with, it's coming up to 11:30, so I'm just crossing into what are we doing here, country? We'll see. It depends how long we record this for. You'll be able to hear the arc of my morning excitement going into why are we here by the time we pass midday. And the creative side, I'm very, because I am a creator, I make stuff. I always have. We all make stuff, but I'm very attached to making things. Then that's a really dominant cycle for me. So all these things come into play, and you can see all these things in different aspects of what's going on. That was a very long answer.
No, I love that. Thank you for sharing that, because it's curious. I really relate to that sense of a menstrual cycle as being a strong cycle. And when you don't have a menstrual cycle, it's a bit like we look to the other cycles as like, oh, where am I? Like, and it's not as strong as, like you say, we have to look for it and find it. And I've not actually had so many menstrual cycles in my adult life. I was on the pill for a really long time and would skip periods, and then I've had 3 children and been breastfeeding, and really only had my cycle come back in the last year, but it's so irregular that I don't get that archetypal peaks and troughs and have to look to the other cycles. But really here, like, I still obviously have hormones being made, so there is still a cycle there to some degree. But really hearing what you're saying is that on the other side of menopause is, without that, it's looking to these other cycles and hearing that the circadian day-night cycle is really strong for you, and the creative cycle. There's ways that you can really anchor into that. And so what does that give you, leaning into the cycles? What's the benefit of that for you?
Well, I wanted to say that it's more looking inward. It's not looking out. It's not looking to the cycles. And I think that's a question that people often ask me. So well, how do you tell what cycle you're in if you don't have a menstrual cycle? And the answer is exactly the same. I do exactly what you do. I look inside and feel how I am, and I come back to the body again and again. And that may mean that, well, it mostly means that I'm noticing five different entirely contradictory things at the same time. But I can tend to some of them and see what happens. And, you know, your question, well, what does that give me? It gives me a relationship to myself. It gives me kindness. It gives me a way of cutting out some of the judgment. Yeah, a kinder relationship to myself, I think.
By tuning in, how are you feeling today? Yeah.
Really simple.
Sounds so simple.
Like, really insanely simple.
Yeah.
And that's why I love this seasonal model, because it's intuitive, and it's, despite our human desire to make everything intellectual and complicated and a problem, it's actually very simple. It's like, oh, well, what do I feel right now? Do I feel a bit tired and depleted? Well, I could call that wintry. What is my wintry self-care? Well, that might mean letting myself off the hook. So I have a piece of work that because I've been in a wintry place and not doing much, I have a piece of work that I have to squeeze into this afternoon because I have a deadline. And I'm like, oh, well, I have to do it terribly, high. And I was like, Kate, just take it easy. You can use the material you already have and just change and adapt it. It's like, let yourself off the hook here. You know, do I feel curious and interested and sniffing possibilities and what ifs? Well, maybe that's a bit springy. Or do I feel a bit tender and young? Maybe that's a bit springy. What could I do here? Well, I could play a bit. Do I want to show myself on a podcast and get my heart out? Well, maybe I can say, really affirm myself. It doesn't have to be complicated. As Autumn, we have to talk about Autumn because we don't want to leave her out, because she's so often left out. So
yeah.
Am I feeling a bit, am I seeing what needs to be said in this conversation? So maybe I get to the point faster. And that's seasonal self-care right there. And that
I love the examples that you gave as well. Really
real world, practical.
Yeah. And easy to connect with. And just tuning in, how am I feeling and what do I need? Just that simple noticing and then choosing from there. That's
and
beautiful.
If it doesn't work out, well, that's okay. You can check in again in 5 minutes and see what do you need now. And that is likely to be something entirely different.
Thank you for sharing that. And your book is called Second Spring Self-Care for Menopause. And I'm really curious about this concept of second spring. And you said that you feel like you're in that season now of in the life cycle. And I wonder how did you come to this? This realization that there could be life after menopause. Oh, God forbid, for yourself.
I know, it's extraordinary. What do we think happens
Who'd have thought?
after 50? It's like, oh, well, you just toddle off this flat earth and kind of flounder around in some mud somewhere quietly, away from the rest of the world, where we won't upset people.
Some truth right there.
Okay. So these seasons, the seasonal view has been developed by Red School, my teachers, and I trained there with my colleague Leora Lieboff, who I mentioned earlier, and together we have done many workshops for menopausal people and perimenopausal people. And what we were looking at was how the seasons of the menstrual cycle were showing up in people's lives. So if you take it from the teenage years being, so from the time of your first bleed, your menarche, being spring with themes of exploration and finding out who you are, and your summer years being a time maybe in your 30s when we want to see our spirit expressed in the world. We need recognition in some sense. Our insides demands to be seen outside and approved of. I think, God, I love doing, actually, this is one of the reasons that I love having these conversations, because I come up with a new explanation every time. That's like the really bottom line on summer. My inside wants to be out there and approved of, please.
Yeah.
And let's not go into what happens when that doesn't happen yet. And then autumn comes as you go through the autumn in your life. You're coming into perimenopause. So again, you have the same themes as you have in your premenstrual phase. So there'll be seeing the truth. Your focus comes inward towards your own values. Like summer is very much about the world's values, and then you come closer towards your own. And this is where there is a problem, because there's typically a conflict between how the cultural messages we've absorbed about how the world needs us to be and how we actually want to express ourselves. So that's the kind of central conflict of perimenopause. And our self-assertion, our capital S self-assertion starts to be louder there. And hopefully we can come into a winter of menopause where we can surrender into the situation we're in, with all its conflicts, all its tiredness, all its symptoms. If there are symptoms, there aren't necessarily. But I think for a quarter of people, there aren't particularly troubling symptoms. So there may or may not be things you notice there. But we come into a relationship where we can be curious about, well, what is happening to me here? Can I be a bit kinder? Can I rest a bit more? So there you have a whole cycle from menarche through to menopause. And then there's a second spring. So then you come into a postmenopausal place that has many of the qualities of the first spring. So you're wandering around, bumping into furniture, going, who am I? And of course, you've had so many decades of life experience, so you'll have hopefully more confidence, more solidity in yourself. But and then we have the, well, surely I should have have it sorted by now, because I'm nearly 60 and I'm still wandering around going, well, who am I then? What's it all about? Yeah. But it has that quality of curiosity and investigation and going out to explore. And then a second summer. So if you look at the people in their 60s, late 60s, early 70s, who are going to pottery classes and climbing up Kilimanjaro and, doing new things, that's second summer. And then a second autumn of letting go of classically downsizing.
Yeah.
Letting go of stuff. Mm-hmm. And a second winter before we shuffle off this earth for this time around, anyway. So that's where second spring fits into the picture. So you can see second spring is a small part.
Yeah, a small part of the second half of life, but in a very, when you describe it like that, I can relate. I can see that in people I know, in family, in friends. And I can think, perhaps they are in second spring and they are in second summer, and they are in autumn and winter. And it just, I think that there's so little. I mean, I think it's really safe to say, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, there's just no focus or the value isn't the same for people in the second half of life as it is for people in the first half of life. And just having that awareness, I think, just it fills me with this joy and this wonder and this, like, potential and real reverence for this journey of the second great cycle, the second half of life. And I just think that that's a really beautiful way of thinking about menopause as like this initiation into that second half of life, really. And one of the things that I believe that you do is really about helping people through menopause and into their second spring, and it's like, in if my word would be like that initiation, but that rite of passage of menopause. How do you help people to or how can somebody who's coming up to either in perimenopause, approaching menopause, or even just on the other side of menopause, how can we reframe this for ourselves and really kind of reclaim it?
Yeah. I think and again, I give a different answer every time. I think taking ourselves seriously is stop. God, pointy finger. I gotta stop it. Stop gaslighting yourself. Oh, and you should know I'm talking to myself here, okay?
I love it.
Stop. Yeah, it's definitely words that, because whenever I get the pointy finger, I think it's because I need to hear stuff for myself. Stop gaslighting yourself. Those feelings that you have are important. Take them seriously. And no matter how much you feel that you shouldn't be feeling like this, that you should be able to cope, that you should be able to do more, that you shouldn't be so exhausted, take those things seriously and care for those things, And it's like, as I was saying earlier, let yourself off the hook, lower your standards. And I think the result of all those things is that we can come into a better relationship to ourselves. So the medicine for all of life, but particularly acute at menopause, is to love ourselves. Oh, I love, in the lovely Louise Hay affirmation styly. Oh yeah, I'll do that today.
Yeah.
But of course it's hard. And actually, if we let ourselves off the hook, if we really take our feelings seriously, if we really give ourselves space and make ourselves important, take ourselves seriously, then the result of that is that we develop a better relationship with ourselves and we can come to love ourselves. But it takes practice, in the kind of moment to moment. Oh, bloody hell, I've got a meeting in 10 minutes. Shall I just I live opposite a bakery. And I have done.
That's dangerous.
Well, I have done for, I don't know, more than a decade, 20 years or something. So I'm actually quite good at resisting. Resisting the lure of the refined carb. But, so it's like, oh God, it's 10 minutes. I'll just have a slice of toast, And on the occasions when I can catch myself and actually make a different choice, that's self-love right there. It's in the kind of moment-to-moment choices about, or actually, well, maybe I could lie down on the earth, on the floor for 2 seconds rather than checking my Instagram feed.
Yeah, I love that. I really love just
maybe, probably not.
I love getting down on the earth. And
yeah, me too. It's so soothing.
So powerful,
isn't it?
Yeah.
So soothing. Oh.
Yeah.
Particularly belly down is my preferred.
Yeah, so choosing that in the moments when you might just default into something that keeps you outside of yourself, but really just coming back into connect and understanding and appreciating, validating yourself and what you're going through. Yeah.
And not overthinking it as well, because whatever the issue is that we're currently dealing with, our tendency is to overthink and to try and figure it out and try and know stuff and to invest. I mean, God love technology, but I'm so glad it wasn't around when I had kids. Oh my goodness. when I was pregnant, when I was looking to birth my children. I mean, thank God for that. But, there are 50,000 opinions out there about whatever your challenge is. And it doesn't help. The answer is always to come back to what we need now. What do you need now in the current moment? What would be kind?
Yeah, like you say, real self-care right there.
Yeah, right there. And it doesn't have to be complicated. But in fact, it shouldn't be complicated. Because the little steps, the little lying on the floor and the choosing to have an apple, not the white bread, and to not pick up my phone, grow. And there's something inside me, and I see it in clients and in my community as well. Every time we do that, there's something inside us that is affirmed. There's something, the whole part of ourselves. And, depending on your belief system and your theoretical background, you'll have different words for that whole self, whether it's a spiritual self or higher self or child or primary or, whatever. But that part of yourself that is whole is affirmed by those choices, I think, and grows stronger. You're feeding her. Feed me. Spoons are funny.
I love that. And so moving into more of this conversation about self-care and this being the focus of your book as well. But I was just saying to you beforehand, I follow you on Instagram and I've been receiving your newsletters, and I see one of the things that you really offer and work with is yoga nidra. And I'm curious about why that's something that you really practice and offer for people, particularly at this time of life. What's in that for you? What's the medicine of that?
Oh, it's like being, I was just thinking, it came to me this morning, it's reminiscent of being really small and tucked up in bed. So you're tucked up with blankets. I don't know. I grew up in the UK, so in the 70s, so we didn't have continental quilts. That was quite foreign and strange. Only weird people had those. We had blankets and were tucked in, so we couldn't get out.
Yeah.
So you were tucked in and cozy and contained, and then some nice person sometimes would come and read you a story. And it's kind of like that. It's this combination of being held by the voice. It's a guided meditation, really. A very special guided meditation. So you're held by the voice and the containment of wherever you're lying, on the floor, on your sofa, in bed, or whatever. And the guidance of the voice lets your body be free, I think. So it's this combination of freedom and containment. And I kind of have a yoga nidra every day, at least one or two, maybe.
Oh, do you? Amazing.
Yeah. And it's not something you have to practice or get good at. You come to it with what you are, with the itches. With meditation, we all have this kind of ridiculous notion about having an empty mind and sitting still for meditation, which is, in my opinion, not what it's about. But that kind of bleeds into yoga nidra as well, that we're lying flat on the floor and not moving. But of course, in real life, we come to it with pain. We come to it with itchy skin and pain and worries and anxiety and, all the stuff that the difficult, jangling stuff that humans bring. And you can come to yoga nidra with that, and the anxiety can rest, and the anxiety can be there, and you can fidget around. And you can get lost and drift off, and most people fall asleep, and that's fine too, because we're all tired. So it's a very generous practice, and this, the structure of it, I think connects in again with that feeds that essential part of ourself that is connected with the seasons, that has essential goodness.
Amazing. And you've just reminded me, I think that's how I first came to any kind of meditation, was doing yoga nidra just in the class I was doing when I lived in the UK. And It wasn't yoga, it wasn't Pilates, it was this kind of hybrid thing, and for like complete beginners. And if you'd have sat there and told me to meditate, I'd have been like, I can't do that. But yoga nidra was this thing where I just felt I could connect with my body and just drift off and always fall asleep. And yeah, I feel like I haven't done any yoga nidra for so long, but it's just, I think it's such a beautiful thing to experience. And I can absolutely see how that would just be perfect as a way.
Yeah, the essential medicine for menopause is rest. And yoga nidra gives you the excuse to lie down because it's a practice.
Permission tick. Yeah.
Tick, and you can go and look at the research and see all the good stuff it does for your hormones, and it does for your for everything, for your brain waves and your mental state, and all the research is there. But basically you get to lie down and tuck yourself up and be comfy for a little while.
Drift off. Yeah, sounds like something we all need. Amazing. Yeah, and so your book Second Spring, like you said, has just come out in the UK. I'm in Australia. Do you know if it's out over here yet?
Oh God! Well, I'm pretty sure you can get it on Audible. I'll be in your ears. I'll be in your ears, which is just like, was so weird. It's like beyond weird. But anyway, I did the audio book recording, so you can definitely get it on Audible. And yeah, rattle HarperCollins' cage and go, oi!
Yeah.
Australia. Yeah. I mean, it'll be in the States in May in a paperback.
Yeah, and it's out in the UK now, and I really want to get my hands on a copy. I think it's really important to read now, even though I'm late 30s. I feel like there's a real sense of raising awareness for personally of what hearing your wisdom, hearing your experience, and just sort of like a sense of preparation, I guess, but normalizing this as well, that the change that will happen, but also normalizing, this radical approach to nurturing yourself through that, caring for yourself gently and moving through this time of life. And, of course, for anybody who is perimenopausal and even moving through menopause and on the other side, I think that this just sounds like such a divine book, a real balm, I think.
Yeah, people say that it's like a hug or like a friendly person talking them through it, or that kind of thing. So it's very permissive. I don't have a 3-step formula. If you've listened this far into the podcast, you would have spotted that by now. I don't have a 3-step formula, but what I give you is the permission for you to drop into yourself, I think. And that you just can't say that often enough. But for anybody who's of your age or in perimenopause, the best teacher you have is your premenstruum, because that's another autumnal state. So if you look at when you come into your premenstruum, you can look at, well, what triggers me here? What truth do I know? What is driving me crazy? And what soothes me? What do I crave? What do I long for here? And that is that gives you like a massive head start around perimenopause.
Yeah, that's real wisdom there. I can really sense that energy that comes up in that premenstrual phase, and those, like you say, the questions and that tension, and having that awareness. I think building up that sensitivity to how it feels for you, and then instead of letting it be this thing that just throws you around and in the wash, like taking it as like, okay, this is how I'm feeling and this is what I'm needing, like you've been saying, and taking that, it feels like a really empowered approach.
Yeah, and in as much as we're currently writing the script about what happens to an embodied person post-menopause in second spring, second summer, second autumn. We're kind of writing this. It's like, oh, what's going on now? Shall I write this down? Yeah, and yes, there is another book coming. Like, oh, better write this down.
Yeah.
See what's happening now. Ooh, this thing, okay. But in the same way, you're writing the script about what happens when somebody has been using menstrual cycle awareness through their menstruating life. What happens in you will be discovering how you'll be writing your book about how menstrual cycle awareness has impacted your perimenopause and menopause and second spring. You may or may not write the book, but you'll be narrating that story.
Yeah.
Because that really interests me. Because I didn't get much of a long period of menstrual cycle awareness. Really not deeply, though I always loved my cycle. But that would be really interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I think, for anyone listening who's like,
my name's Kate. We had a conversation 30 years ago. Bloody hell, woman! Yes,
brilliant.
Tell me about it.
That's amazing. I love that. Yeah. I feel like, for anyone who's really struggling right now with their inner autumn phase, I think that's a real, what you're saying is connecting in with like what's really going on in there, because this is something that can come up for you later and play out in these other ways. So, yeah.
For 10 years.
10 years.
Average of 10 year thing. And of course, there will be other cycles in that, but there's kind of like, it's like a weather system, when you get stuck, wherever you live, you get stuck in a weather system and you have an endless same weather for a long time. It's kind of like that. The temperature goes up and down, sun rises and sets, but you're kind of held in this autumnal weather system in perimenopause.
It just lasts and lasts and lasts. Well, thank you so much, Kate. Thank you. I've absolutely loved meeting you for the first time after, following you for quite a long time, and, hearing your wisdom. And I really want to get my mitts on a book. So I'm going to see what I can do. Otherwise, I'll be listening to your you in my ears on Audible. So
yeah. Oh, don't do that. Oh my God.
And for anyone wanting to connect with you, so like we've said, where the book's available, you're also on, we can go and find that or Audible, but you're also on Instagram, and I think you're at Kate Codrington. Is that right?
Kate_Codrington. Yeah. I think there's only a couple of other Kate Codringtons on the Wonder Web, so I'm quite hard to miss because I bang on a lot about menopause.
Yeah, look for the menopause.
Yeah, follow the paper trail.
And if someone was wanting to connect with you and maybe join in with some of the yoga nidras that you're doing, can you just quickly tell us about how people can find you to do that?
Yeah, sure. My website, which is katecodrington.co.uk, has all the events and stuff on there, and it has a wealth of free stuff. Like there's this amazing cupboard of wonders, which has a lot of free yoga nidra for everything from different seasons, for menopause. There's one to help you do your accounts. So shout out to all the self-employed people out there. There are images of the life seasons, so you can stick them on your fridge and say to your housemates, "See, that's why." Show them graphically why you're feeling the way you do. There are free workshops. I mean, there's just like this ridiculous. There's tons of stuff.
Aladdin's Cave, amazing.
Yeah,
brilliant. Anyone listening who's interested, go and check out Kate's body of work over on her website. And thank you just so much for joining us. It's been a real delight, and I've learned a lot. And I'm really, I actually feel excited, going into, that phase of life for myself. And I'm sure it's going to be shit in parts, but, but it's that having that sense of like, it's a process, and, there's simple ways of nurturing yourself. And, on the other side, there being the second spring, I think gives a nice little glow of hope as well.
Yeah. And if you can find ways to slip out of a fearful mindset, your mental health will be better, your physical health will be better, your hormonal health will be better.
Amazing. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you so much. I've had such a blast.
Thank you so much for listening in. If you're loving this podcast and you'd love to help me spread the wisdom shared, please leave a review or rating, or share this with somebody who you think would love to listen in. I'm really passionate about creating ripples of change and getting this information to more women, girls, and people with a cycle so that they can reclaim their cyclic natures too. And if you'd love to dive in deeper with learning more about how to connect with your cycle and rites of passages, come and join our free Wild Flow Circle community, or choose a course and learn with me on my online learning hub. All the links are in the show notes. And until next time, be well and go with the flow of your cyclic nature.